Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to tonight's second half. Before we jump into tonight's second half, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, the channel's membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and the membership are in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go, and yes, they definitely matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to tonight's second half, shall we? Today's first subscriber submission. Like I said, I had nightmares thanks to trying everything if possible, so it took me a little longer than I would have liked because I needed to take the time to ease the nightmares. Don't be afraid to shoot me back an email if you've got any thoughts or questions about these experiences. Also, do express yourself if you're upset about anything to us fans, because you are somebody we can reach out to about the trauma regarding these creatures and be taken seriously. It left a deep enough mental with my first encounter to change my personality. Let's start with the basics. Hey Jeff, my name is MN. If you've noticed, I'm an avid, somewhat intelligent about understanding these creatures due to my encounters and research. Though misinformation of dogmen, skinwalkers, and werewolves, I believe such things happen due to misinformation in the research communities due to speculation. I can tell you these experiences happen in a Winnebago. I could give you coordinates, but I'd prefer not to. I can drag my other friends into telling their sides of these experiences with me, though they'd prefer not to. Let's talk a little bit about myself. After I moved to this town, I immediately took to hanging out, exploring, and playing out in the woods by my house. I noticed immediately that it gets quiet sometimes, but I liked it, because my life wasn't really quiet or peaceful. Typically, most people that I bring there usually get nervous, but they usually take the spot like it's home. My best friend has been my friend since second grade, and I am now 22. I have a twin brother. You can refer to him as Joe. Keep in mind, I played football, ran cross country, wrestled. My parents made me choose between football and wrestling. Of course, I chose wrestling. I went to college briefly, only to drop out due to depression. Then I got a job at the local Walmart pushing carts. People thought I was like SpongeBob or something, the way I worked hard and enjoyed it, even on a minus 40-degree day. I hit rock bottom after I dated a girl in 2019 and quit my job because I couldn't work. I wasn't in good headspace. She was one of those gold-digging, keep your heart on a string type girls, and I rushed back to her head first. Every time, because I have a stubborn, bleeding heart. I set the bar too high for her. She might not find happiness, and always live with a void. I never swore or yelled at her. I was patient with her. I was willing to do most anything for her. One such story involves the fact that I am prone to motion sickness. I had a seizure trying to push myself into going on a roller coaster. It was the stress on my body that probably caused it. I thought she didn't see it happen, so I could play it off, so she enjoyed herself that day. She saw right through that, and we decided just to go to the mall instead. I think she didn't understand the gesture. She even told me to stop research past a certain point because she had 2 encounters with me. She was afraid for my well-being. So I say progress requires sacrifice. My research led me to believe that this dogman would use drive hunts and even force them into cars to save energy, which I do have a story about. Also, that there are other cryptids in play. Keep in mind, this is technically a werewolf I'm dealing with. Window experience. It was mid-fall of 2006 or 7. It was a school night, and it was late. I can say for sure that I remember I was reading a magic treehouse book, Winter Wizard or something, ahead of a coming book report project. I reread the book multiple times to soak in as many details as possible. I could remember my hands being dry and cracked from the weather. After a good chunk of the book, I put the bookmark in and tucked the book underneath my bed. I tried going to sleep. I rolled and rolled, but something felt off, like something was staring, and that my hair was standing on my arms as well. So I turned toward the window and saw something that was nearly a foot taller than my dad by comparison to the window. My dad's 6'3" in shoes. This wolf thing, looking at me, was built. The eyes were a darkish yellow, and its teeth were slightly yellow. It had dark fur, less fur on the chest as you moved down on him. It really didn't have fur past certain, meaning it was bare. Also, the outer fur of its face was matted differently than the inner because it was more pressed down inwards. When I say it was built, he had shoulders, forearms, chest. He slightly flashed his teeth. It moved its hand in a certain way. I couldn't escape its gaze or stop looking at its teeth for about 2 minutes. I didn't understand what this thing meant with the hand movement. I just knew it wanted me to go outside. I was paralyzed, shaking with fear. I slowly pulled the covers over my head, crying silently. My mind raced. Should I run or should I just stay put? Within 2 minutes, I built the courage after what felt like forever and ran to my parents' room screaming and crying bloody murder. I didn't dare look back at the window. By the time my mom and dad and myself checked out the window, it was gone. After that, nightmares of being chased by wolves and being ripped apart alive with actual pain in the dream. I realized later that it was the hand gesture meant come here. I can't help by wondering about 2 things. What would have happened if I went outside? And 2, why bother the way he did when he could have easily punched his way through the window and killed everyone with ease, only to try to get me the way he did. 2015, summer of. I was a coming sophomore, so was my brother and my friend. We were out with 2 guys who were incoming freshmen. It was midsummer. It was midday and hot as crap. Everyone was sweating profusely. The bugs weren't biting us where we were at, but my friend, twin, and I always knew about this place that looked like a pond but never went down till that day. We were out fishing at the creek that is close to it. There's actually a trail off the other side of the creek that leads you there. We were goofing around by fishing for creek chub, which is a type of minnow with worms. We ran out of bait and said, yeah, let's go check out this pond. My pole setup wasn't set up for quick changes because I didn't have a swivel, meaning I had to tie everything on again. My friends went ahead except for my friend who waited for a minute and gave me a swivel. He said the mosquitoes are getting bad here. I know you'll catch up, and he went on ahead catching up with the other friends. By the time I got my swivel, lure, and tackle box all prepped up, it had been about 4 minutes since my friend left. I started on the trail toting my tackle pole and bag. I noticed something big and black on all 4s. It was walking on and sniffing my friend's tracks. Its height was the odd thing at the shoulders. It was almost at breast height to me. It didn't notice me, and my dumbass decided to rush it and yell, hey. It looked back oddly and kind of smiled and made a quiet noise. It rushed ahead of me, though. I'm a year-round mid-built athlete. He dusted me worse than anything could have. I was hopping over everything in my way. I managed to turn on the trail and book it to the clearing right in front of the pond. I stopped to catch my breath. I dropped my gear and put my hands over my head. My friend was waiting there. He asked me if I had gotten lost or had to take a dump. He saw I was a little stressed, and he asked me semi-ironically, "Did you see a ghost?" I said, "No, I saw a giant black wolf." He chuckled for about a minute and said, "No way, man, not in Illinois." "But the bass are biting here, buddy." I said, "I'll catch up in a minute and try and figure out how he outmaneuvered me." So I backtracked. I noticed my tracks went further than his past a certain point. So my assumption was, instead of going toward the clearing, he went to the right through the brush just before the clearing. I looked into it. There are reports of wolves in the state line. I made a report to the DNR website and included an odd size of the wolf. Within 10 minutes the phone rang because I had left my number if they had any questions. I had a strong feeling I shouldn't pick it up, so I didn't. Then I forgot about it until spring. By then, when the shenanigans of the hide-and-go-seek I mentioned online before as a question. Spring of 2016, 11 a.m. It was a tragic year. I lost a lot of people, a coach, my grandfather, and my sister in that order. My sister died in May. All of them suddenly, yet spaced apart. I once again found solace in the quietness of the woods, not because I wanted things to be quiet, but because I wanted to be alone, because that's how I felt. Though I didn't mind my brother along with me sometimes, though he talked too much. We weren't far from the pond. We went right just before the clearing. We saw it again. We looked at each other again, and we didn't even need to speak. We nodded and just rushed it. The creature moved in such a way past the brambles, the logs, and other debris, with such ease, and all the while giving a smile before it took off. I couldn't help admire the level of grace right then and there. It disappeared past a certain point like a ghost, but me and my brother looked with each other for a while. We split up looking. I saw it alone again after looking for 25 minutes. I rushed it again. It still had that smile and grace. By then my legs were bleeding from the brambles. It ghosted me again. Within a couple of minutes of that, I saw my twin again. Shortly after, we looked together for less than 5 minutes. Then saw it one last time and rushed it one last time. It felt like we would never catch it. We decided just to go home because we were both pretty scraped up, bitten up on the top of that. Another friend's story. It was 2017 winter. My friend lives on a long stretch of road, not too far from his house. He would make a couple of bucks cleaning and taking care of horses. He was headed there late because he had went to college scouting for track during the day. He was driving his truck, and not too far from the guy's house, he saw Black Wolfman, as he described, on 2 legs. My friend turned the lights up, and then it changed to 4-point stance and ran off into the brush. He talked to the guy about it for a while and talked about some other stuff. Then something startled the horses. He told my friend to stay behind, and he grabbed his gun and turned out the brights on the porch lights. And they stood there for a while, went back inside, then went out back with the man to take care of the horses. My friend got done, got paid, and got out of there. But he called the guy within 30 minutes to check up on him, and the man said everything was all right. After that, my buddy waited a couple days and decided to tell the wildest guys he knows, so he messaged me. I told him my experiences, and we pushed it off, though the pieces were fitting together. But we continued without looking until that night. We ran into it unintentionally then. Some week during September of 2018, 11 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. My best friend, the guy from the last story, 2 of his friends, and my twin decided it would be a good idea to play the game called Missing Man. It's a simple look for the missing man in a group as friends in the dark and out in the woods, of course. My best friend only hid the longest, though my senses are sharp to know his exact location while knowing the group's location. For some odd reason, I didn't want no part of this game. I wanted to stay next to my best friend, though. It could give away his position to the group. It was quite probably because I heard footsteps elsewhere. We were just outside of the woods, my best friend and I nodded, and we decided we should scare them and draw them back at the same time because our humor is a little twisted since we were childhood friends. He was up in a tree watching me barefoot. He said, "Go and scare 'em." "Scare 'em bad." I nodded and said, "Okay." So I started screaming hysterically, "Get it off! Get it off!" You would have thought somebody lit me on fire. I got a kick out of it. He got a kick out of it. They came running back, saying and asking, "What's going on?" I told them I just did it to mess with them. My brother and the two others pushed me to the ground and started roughhousing with me, calling me a a-hole. We started talking about what we were going to do for the next 5 minutes. That's when something interesting happened. They screamed loud enough you could feel it in your chest and your ears hurt just a little. It sounded like a guttural high pitch, just to imagine the sound of a old horror movie woman screaming mixed with a pig that lasted for about 30 seconds. We legged it to my house. My best friend, he's a skeptic, but won't talk about what happened after that night because we all dove into the topic after the horse farm, though. I was neck deep compared to them. They explained something was following them from the distance while they were looking for my best friend. We decided that that's messed, so let's do something else. So, went Blood's Point, the most haunted road in Illinois. It didn't go any smoother at Blood Point, so decided McDonald's they wanted to hear my theories on it. I didn't state anything than what I already definitely knew, such as there are different types and that they jump real far. After that, they dropped my twin, my best friend, and I off, but they had to come back because my twin forgot his phone in their car. Sure enough, they saw it running through the park towards the no trespassing sign property. Last week of September of that year was interesting working at Wally World due to the scuffle of people trying to buy last-minute stuff on the weekends. Also, we went looking for it with 5 friends plus my brother. It's just 'cause we were bored. It was drizzling and cold enough for a sweatshirt. It quickly started tailing us as soon as we entered the woods. It came from the side, from the firing range, no trespassing zone. I told them right away that we were being followed. We went toward the highway and the neighborhood fork instead of going straight. We went left on the trail that leads towards the other neighborhood. By the time we were halfway down that trail, we were getting rocks pelted at us. Just before the fork that leads to the island in the corn, I can see these rocks are bigger than my fist. Also, they come from up and over the tree line. My friend with the horse farm story nearly got a huge one straight to the head, but it went over less than a couple of feet. The situation had a different type of air to it. We all decided to keep moving to avoid being pelted. There was a moment that I knew something was around us before my friends did. I quickly mentioned that to my friends and they nodded to that. If I think about it's probably the face, we realized right away the one was trailing us. At this point, most of the decision making was up to me rather than the group. About a minute of walking, the rock stopped, but the one moving was ahead of us, but at an angle and a fair distance. I said, "Let's shine our brights at them." I had a lantern spotlight with a red lens option. That's about 1200 lumens, and a 2500 lumens hand flashlight. Both are rechargeable, but it's the flashlight that is dangerous because of the settings on it. I took the 2500 and toggled the settings to flash, which is rapid enough to consider a seizure risk. It cut off at an angle but back the other way, away from us. We kept walking to get to the end of the trail by the neighborhood. When we got there, we were trying to spot what was throwing rocks at us. My friends were panicking just a little bit, but they knew I was calm, so I told them we can cut through the neighborhood to my neighborhood. It'll take longer, or we can cut back and it'll be quicker. Two of my friends were girls. One of them really had to pee, so I said, me and my twin can stay back while you guys go to the Walmart there. She didn't like that one bit because she was concerned. The one cut ahead of us went behind the tree line on the left. She said, Mike, Joe, you realize there are at least two of those things. I responded with a chuckle. There's probably more than that. So we decided to cut back through while shaking a leg to get back because the neighborhood route would be just a little longer. Everyone was huddled, but we shook a leg, but not quite running or jogging pace. The horse guy was screaming the Star-Spangled Banner. The girls were trying to hold on to me. It's one thing that irritates me. I don't like that attention from a girl that's got a boyfriend because I feel like a bad guy. So I told them to move ahead of the group while I trail the group. It was a couple of minutes past the tree line. There was a break in the tree line. But we stopped so I can think clearly and come up with a plan. I said, let's stop, turn off the lights, and be quiet. The group interrupted with protest. My twin said, he's right. Your plan is to shine it when it gets close to us to scare it off and even get a better look at it. Correct. If flash its eyes off guard, we can book it. We waited. They almost started panic again. I told them, shut up and huddle up. I grabbed the 2500 hand flashlight. We waited and listened. It was creeping up at us. I waited until it was about 50 yards away, and I flashed it. We saw it briefly. I noted the eye shine was yellow. The ears were pointed. It was on two legs, but it reacted quickly. It literally just yeeted its whole body sideways from the far side of the trail past the other side of cover, away from the light. I said, all right, let's go quick. So we picked up the pace to a jog, and I toggled the flashlight setting and kept it pointed behind and to the side of us and moved to the back of the group. We got out and decided to keep the pace to my house. We let the girl use the bathroom and went to Walmart because we were bored. I told everyone I'll scout for tracks early the next morning because they wondered this situation was different than the other encounters and our basic understanding of these creatures for three of us. Late as I ate some food, had coffee, and was out the door by 6:30. I followed our path from last night and noticed the classic Dogman tracks. What's worth noting is the stride length between each is a dead giveaway. I went behind the tree line and started looking. I was a little shook by the tracks, 3 different sizes, a big one a little bit smaller, and one was the size of a child's. They were Bigfoot tracks. So I sat down and crossed my legs and mulled it over. They weren't aiming for the Dogman with the rocks because they were barely missing us. The Dogman cut across to the tree line to where the Bigfoot was at with the tracks, but was good enough distance away, the tracks, to imply it was ahead of them. Obviously, they didn't fight each other. We would have heard that, saw it, and wouldn't forget it. So I deduced the Dogman was trying to keep pace with us from them, which is odd, not a character for a Dogman. So I plucked some hair from my beard and decided to scuff my prints and leave. I told my friends and twin later, and they knew enough to think this was odd too. Researched at the Forest Preserve, I found Dogman prints along the creek and the smaller Bigfoot prints ahead of the Dogman's. And the bigger foot's print were on the other side, kind of in between, making a choke point with deer prints in between, which of these deer prints passed at an angle due to the weight of it being pressed towards the creek, means it was railed right there by the smaller foot. There was some crushed grass, no blood, so I guess they took a meal to go. I guess they do co-op drive hunts, which is the most unusual behavior. Again, I sat down, crossed my leg, and thought it over while plucking my beard hair for a couple of minutes and started walking home. The next encounters were brief but resounding, not even a couple of weeks apart. A couple days before that, I was being stalked because I decided to walk through the neighborhood on my way home from work that night because the weather wasn't gonna stay nice for too long. I felt like I was being watched. It was quiet. My heart rate shot up. I started walking on heels to hear better. I heard something moving alongside of me in the cornfield about 150 yards ahead of the tree line. I didn't pay it any attention and pretended not to notice it because it would have had to go back through the woods because it couldn't cut through the neighborhood. It was 20-minute stroll that night home. I got home, ate some lasagna, and drank a lot of water. I realized I left my caddy and propane key in my pocket. I begged my mom to take me right back because there were only 2 sets and I had one of them. My boss was still there. She looked at me funny and asked, "You forgot something, Mike." "The keys, boss." "Oh, okay," she said, and continued through the paperwork. I put them away and went back outside, took a long glance at my lot. Then I hopped in the car and went back home. As soon as I got home, my dog had to go outside again, but something felt off, so I stood right next to her outside. She didn't go too far away from the deck, which was odd. I looked towards where I felt it should be, only to smile at me and have its hand wrapped around part of an old tree that was intertwined in the tree line. I realized this one was different because it wasn't the one I saw as a kid, because it wasn't as tall as the one in the woods when I was in grade school and high school. As soon as she got done, I prompted my dog immediately go back inside by lightly tugging and telling her quietly to go in. She was at the door before I was. My little cousin was over. We were messing around, playing video games, vaping, and telling stories about hijinks and shenanigans. He found my Linda Godfrey books in my folder. While we were waiting for my best friend to show, he started making fun of me. It stung on a personal level, and I said, "Yeah, I bet you it's $10 real, you shithead." He kind of drooped his head. He knew better to bet on me because it's free money for me, because I made a couple $100 in high school betting and hustling, Mountain Dew Baja Blast in cans over 4 years. We went outside and moved to the side of the house because I had a pretty good guess where it was. We went outside of the garage and went to the side of the house. I closed my eyes quickly and said, "Yup, it's here." I pointed to the fence. He saw it. It was ducking in and out of cover, though his shoulder was exposed and its hand was wrapped on the fence. That one smiled at us as well. It was the same one from the day or two before. My little cousin started yelling and cursing at me. "I thought you were messing with me." All the while, he had my collar of my shirt shaking me. Then he started punching me in my gut in panic. I stood there laughing at him, and it was because I proved him dead wrong, and now he's afraid of its presence. Sure enough, we got interrupted right on time, a horn being held in the distance, then the skirt of a car turning. When we heard him honk the horn very rapidly, he turned and watched him shoot a corner and nearly run us over. Because of our twisted humors we share, there's my best friend. He was ready to get drunk with me and my twin that night. This encounter was a rainy winter night. We decided to go ice skating with my horse friend, his girlfriend, my twin, my little cousin, my best friend, and another guy because it sounded like fun. I friggin' ate it within the first 10 minutes. I almost landed on my head, but turned my shoulder the last second to avoid hitting my head. The pain set in immediately. It was sharp and burning. I pushed through it. Just have fun with him. My little cousin ate it too. I said, "Ha ha, shithead." I said to him, though I did regret saying that because I could see he was in a decent amount of pain and it was a pretty bad sprain. It was bad enough. Wear pants the next day for work. Back to the story. We then went to B-Dubs. I had 2 beers. They eased my shoulder pain because the alcohol was blood thinning my blood. We went to drop off the guy first. He lived just a stone's throw away from the pond. We ended up discussing my favorite topic because my horse friend was interested to see if I had done any more research and if I learned anything since the last time we discussed it. To which I gave him a simple yeah. There was an odd amount of deer kills and a small game kill from cars on the highway. And within this general area, I suppose they got dragged or carried to the brush when nobody was there, then ripped to shreds. I tell him I found a whole hip intact, severed from a deer, about 6 feet from what was left of the body a couple years back. Sure, as I was speaking about it to draw, the friggin' deer is to the side of the road, looking behind it first, then at us, then back. He acts like he's gonna go, but he didn't. So we slowed down to see who would move first. He just stood there, so we gunned it. Sure enough, he looked back behind him, and then he gunned it. My friend swerved hard enough for the tires to squeal. We all screamed. Me and my little cousin looked back to see it on all fours on the right, only for a couple of seconds, just to get out of view thanks to the fact that we were still moving. At that point, a grim thought crossed my mind. Am I stuck dealing with these things regardless of where I go? And how long will I have to deal with these things for? I already vaguely knew the answer, but I didn't want to accept it. The next encounter only reinforced it. Spring 2019, I started dating a girl I met in high school. I was a senior then, but she was a freshman. But she was really the only person I really noticed. It was because she had a wild look in her eyes like mine. She didn't believe in the paranormal and such. She's my ex now, and it's gonna stay that way. At the time, I convinced her to go to Blood Points to change her mind, and started praying when I got there, please don't let there be a Dogman, over and over again. As we got there, our phones and some type of interference. Hers shut off entirely. Being a brand new phone was strange, while my screen was stuck. I noted the temp dropped significantly, and my side of the windshield was fogged. I was almost relieved until I felt something behind my eyes kind of helps point out where they are, only as long as I practice looking for them. We were looking on our side road. I had mine, she had hers. The smell of skunk and carrion became very heavy in the air. Sure enough, it was my side of the road. I saw the tail and the ears. It just moved from the brambles apart and darted in. Luckily, she missed it, but she saw the look before the Six Flags when I tried to play it off, having a seizure just for her. She started shaking me, and what did you see? I just laughed. Oh, it's nothing. Bullcrap, she said. I laughed more and told her, wait till we get out of here and I'll tell you. We pulled into a gas station in Cherry Valley. She said, all right, spit it out. I replied, I don't dip anymore. Remember? Ha ha ha, funny. Now, what did you see? You noticed that terrible smell back on the road? She said, yes, I did. Well, I sharted really bad. No, you didn't. You saw something. Yes, I did see something. I saw a Dogman. I could make out the ears, tail, and bulky shoulder before it ran into the brush. She nodded and understood. She said the phones were enough to convince me, plus the temp drop of 10 degrees in the car. Oh, you noticed that too? I just saw it and turned off the headlights and smiled at her. The next encounter was about a week or two later. My little cousin wanted to go into the woods, even if he had to go to him by himself, so me and my ex-girlfriend tagged along. I led them towards the trespassing sign and pointed and said, "There, just ahead, and to the left about 70 yards. I only had the lantern. The eye shine was yellow, but was kind of peering behind a tree. It disappeared, then moved to another tree that was closer. My little cousin sat down, crisscross, and said, "I'm gonna wait." That shithead was definitely my blood, being as stubborn and fearless as me, but my ex wanted to get out of there. So I dragged him by the wrist and said, "Some other time without her here." He nodded to acknowledge what I said, but instead of keeping its distance, but was closing in on us by moving cover to cover. It was scary enough for her to make me promise to her I wouldn't do my research anymore out of fear of my well-being. That summer she broke up with me, spit me out, repeated. I went the 9 rounds. Again, I turned into a booze-fueled, depressed guy that felt like he wouldn't stop falling, but my friends are the ones that saved me from falling. By fall of 2019, I decided it was okay to break that promise because her words couldn't be trusted or taken seriously. She tried here and there to contact me, but I didn't want any part of it until she flattered by saying, "You'll never really did anything wrong to me and only did right." She developed memory problems, but apparently she could only remember me. I nicknamed her Rabbit because you can't help but feel sorry for her, only for her to lead you in circles just to hurt you. Then I decide I'm what she wants in the long run, but not in the short run, so I decided it's okay for me to be selfish. I'm not exactly worried about these creatures. My deduction and Foots the Dogman both passed, though, around the same time. Dogman obviously noticed me and my twin right away. He probably saw me act. We are a little bit different than other humans. It probably gets boring for it and thinks that my twin and I are interesting. I used to play in the woods all the time as kids. There were many times we went alone, but it never made its move on us. It never made its move when I grew older, and though I spent countless hours alone or with a couple of friends year-round, I even passed out drunk once with fresh tracks out there. All right, folks, I apologize on that last part. Subscriber submitted experience, and I actually forgot to correct the end. My bad. Anyway, guys, I truly do appreciate all of your support and all of the just constant support that you guys give each other in the community. Truly an amazing feat. It's not just me talking in the mic. It's you guys sharing and caring in the comment section and forming an amazing community, which is truly just mind-blowing. Guys, you are what makes this channel so special and what keeps it growing and going, so thank you. With that being said, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on the children, the pets, the family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there. Be safe and share a little bit of information with those that you love. It may just save their life someday. God bless.